Hi, Kerry here again from Best of Us in Retirement. I also have a channel called Best of Us Investors, and it was a kind of a natural thing because I'm a retired financial advisor. I have the CFP, the CHSC, and the CLU. So I guess you might say, or I think of it, I have a master's degree or maybe even a doctor's degree in financial planning. Now, financial planning is a lot different, I found out, relative to in retirement. In retirement, I'm an investor. I'm not a financial advisor. I basically have my own financial plan, but I think what really happened was we lost our daughter to cancer, and I needed something to do. And I had a modest portfolio that I managed. It amounted to about $300,000, and since 2019, the start of 2019, I've moved it up to over $1 million, about $1.2 million. And I've done it because I invest differently than I advised as a financial advisor. What happened actually was I was at a bachelor party for my son's brother-in-law, and another one of his brother-in-laws asked me if I'd ever read this book. And it's called The Accidental Superpower by Peter Zeon. It's in the description here if you'd like to get it. It changed my life. It basically opened my eyes up to how our world works. It takes me all the way back to the days of Egypt on the Rhine River, I believe it was the Rhine River, and how rivers become important to the success of a country, how the United States is so prosperous because of the rivers that move through it, and the borders that it has that are basically covered by oceans. And so you learn a lot about the economics, the social economics of the world. And then it also talked to me about demographics and how you basically have 4 stages of demographics. When you're born until you're 20, you're nothing but a drain on society. And then at the end of your life, when you're past 65, for a lot of people, you're again a drain on society. But in the interim, in the middle, you're either the spender, or you're the investor, or you're the person who's getting taxed to support the country. So once you understand that and the ramifications of it, you can become a better investor. Then I read a book, again in the description, about the future. It's called The Future is Faster Than You Think. Recognize this book was written actually in 2017, I believe, or maybe 19, and it was before the pandemic. Well, the picture changed right after the pandemic. So the long and short of this is I read a book a month that is going to educate me in what I'm passionate about. And what I'm passionate about is making a lot of money in the stock market. And so then from there, what I did was I said, well, I need to put this all into perspective. I need to figure out how this happening relative to this happening, relative to this happening, how it affects the stock market and how it can help me predict what the stock market is going to do next. So what I did is I created a chart. And basically it maps the S&P 500 from 1990 through today. And you can see it climb. And then I plugged in events, things that happened. The invention of the internet, the invention of the e-commerce, and then the mobile phone, and social media, and then big data, and then the EV revolution, and now the healthcare revolution. And then I said, okay, where did the money come from to make all this happen? So I tracked the national debt. And I learned a lot about when the country prints money, where does it go? And if I can figure out where it's going and invest in the companies that are going to receive it, I can claim ownership in those companies and make myself wealthy. Well, that's what I've done. And really, I've done it over the past 2.5 years. So what I want to do now is I want to share this chart with you. I want to walk you through it so you can see how the world works and how the economy works, and how, if you can figure this out, like I have, you can become extremely wealthy. You literally can figure out, what is the next Amazon going to be? What is the next Google going to be? What fields are they going to be in? And where are they going to get the money to propel themselves into this disruption and the technology, and to pay for the technology that they need to make it happen? And this chart shows you all that. So that's what I'm going to spend about the next 9 minutes with you explaining. And then I'm going to explain how you can get a copy of this chart. So then maybe you can build it into your computer, and then we can grow together. As I explain in the future what I think is going to happen and how I'm investing, you can chart it on your chart. My goal in this whole thing is to make you a better investor. Again, I spent years as a financial advisor, and I never made anybody a better investor. All I did was gather their money on behalf of my employer or my franchisor, franchisor, and turn the money over to them so that they could help you reach your financial goals. And their number one method was to diversify you, to put you in a broad enough market so that you never really get hurt bad. But at the same time, you never really make a lot of money because you are not specifically investing in the events that are going to change the world you live in. And let me be very specific of that. Has the invention of the internet changed the world you live in? Well, of course it has. So then why, back in 1998, didn't you buy all the internet stocks? Why didn't you buy Apple, Google, Microsoft? Why didn't you buy Facebook in the late 90s? Because you weren't paying attention, because you didn't read the books, because you didn't have my chart. Okay, let's look at this chart. This is the chart that I use, that I was referring to help me understand why the market does what it does. I title it, The Stock Market is Driven by Events. I show in red the various events that I think have moved the market in the past, going back into the early 90s, the internet and the digital revolution, followed in the early 2000s, the e-commerce revolution, then the social media mobile phone revolution, then the big data, artificial intelligence, more recently the EV revolution, and what I think we're in the midst of right now, the healthcare revolution. I then equate those to the market's reactions and the financial movement by the government and the government's reactions to these events. I go back to 1990. Our national debt in 1990 was $3.2 trillion. And you can see the enthusiasm of the dot-com internet carried the market up with not all that large of increase in the national debt from 1990 to 2000. Then we come and we had the dot-com bubble. This was the overexuberance of people investing in anything and everything that had a dot-com behind it. And then we came forward, and that crashed. And then 9/11 occurred. And then we came down to the recovery. And the recovery was facilitated by the federal government. As you can see in 2020, in 2000, we had a national debt of $4 trillion. Well, over the next 4 years, or 8 years, we went up to $8 trillion. We doubled the debt, the national debt. It took us 200 years to get to $4 trillion, and we doubled it between 2000 and 2008. And that increased the value of the stock market. That money had to go somewhere. And it had to land somewhere, and it went into the stock market. The stock market improved and started to turn around in 2010. But between 2008 and 2018, 10 years, we put $1 trillion into the stock market or into the economy over that next 10 years. You're also going to notice this dashed line here. This is the Afghan War. It's actually started in Iraq and a year later moved into Afghanistan. But in this period of time, until just recently, from 9/11 till just recently, of that additional debt, 2.3 trillion of it went into Afghanistan. Now you can see the effects of that $10 trillion started to push this movement of the S&P 500 faster and faster. You can see the trajectory of the line goes up substantially. And we hit 2018 with $18 trillion in debt. And we keep that pace up of $1 trillion a year until 2020, when the coronavirus comes in. And you see the large drop in the stock market. Then look at the trajectory of the S&P 500. Because between 2020 and 2021, we aren't at the end of 2021, we've put another $8 trillion in 1 year into the stock market. And you can see how the S&P has just skyrocketed as a result of it. Now, the other thing that you need to be aware of, in 2021, we identified that we were at bio warfare. We were fighting a virus and cyber warfare. Our internet systems were being shut down by cyber attacks. And so we have recognized that we need to combat that. Joe Biden has come forward and said he wants another $3 trillion. The Republicans are saying no. So Joe went looking for money. And he just last month shut down the Afghanistan war to get access to this $2.3 trillion that is going out of our budget at the rate of $115 billion a year. He shut that pipeline off. And now I believe, is going to use that $115 billion a year to fight the bio war and the cyber war. And that will change our health care and create the healthcare revolution. I share this with you because I don't think if you don't understand this, if you don't understand past history and what has caused, if you just look at a chart of the S&P 500 and have no idea what has caused this tremendous surge, it's actually up 1,352% since 1990. That's enormous growth. And if you would have just put your money in there and just forgot about it, you'd be fine. But today, I think you need to understand the stock market if you have investments in the stock market or if you want to make investments in the stock market, so that you can measure what you see happening and then have a chance to predict what's going to happen in the future. I do that on my Best of Us Investors YouTube channel. I tell you what I'm going to do. I think where we are right now is comparable to this dip you saw right here. This was back in, what? December of 2018. At that time, this was shortly after Donald Trump came into office, we had a federal policy, fear of interest rates. We Trump was kind of telling China, we ain't taking this anymore. We had real heavy big tech scrutiny. We had inflated earnings. PE ratios on stocks were as high as up to about an average in the S&P of 33%. And we had the GOP tax cuts. And that's what caused this dip here. That's where I think we are right now. We have some question about interest rates. We have some questions about what's going on in China. We have Apple just got thrown a blow by the courts as to their dealing with the apps, and Google is being called up as well. And then we have inflated earnings. We actually have the threat of a tax increase. So I think this is a parallel to where we are right now. And I, as a result of that, am starting to liquidate some of my holdings, or at least cut back to raise cash, because I'm anticipating another drop like this until we get through these fear times of anywhere from 10 to 20% in the market, at which time I will buy back in. So, because this healthcare revolution is going to be with us for the next 5 years. This is where the growth of our country is going to be. And part of it's going to be financed by the money that was going to Afghanistan. I would not be at all surprised to see us cutting other foreign aid, because we need the aid here. We need to rebuild our infrastructure. We need to rebuild our supply chain, and we need to revolutionize our healthcare system. So this is what I think drives the market. Okay, that's my view into the future. That's how I invest. If you'd like a copy of this, I'm going to put a link to it in right below the description. You'll see my little verbiage of what the video is about, and right below it, it's going to say link to stock market driven by events chart. That's what we'll call it. And you go to that link, and you'll enter your name and your email address, and I'll send you a copy of this. Again, my objective is real simple here. I just don't think our world, particularly us baby boomers, have had the advantage of financial literacy. We don't understand how the world works. And it's not that difficult. It really isn't. If you'll pay attention and if you'll read. And I would encourage you, if you're sitting around watching Judge Judy or whomever those daytime ladies are who talk on TV, and read a book. Go get, first of all, get Peter Zeon's. They're all in the description down there below this video, and educate yourself. And then the crazy part about it is, once you educate yourself, you're going to get filthy rich. You really are. Oh, okay. I love retirement. This is the best half of my life.